Welcome to This Indulgent Life, the podcast, with me, Mary Cook, and this is episode number 17. Today on This Indulgent Life, the podcast, we are talking with Madison from the American Fieldtrip about big travel dreams and visiting every national park in the U.S. with 2 kids in a converted school bus. Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of This Indulgent Life, where together wanderlusting families navigate respectful parenting, education, and fulfilling our dreams of having an extraordinary life through travel. We believe that life shouldn't just be an obligation, and that the American dream isn't the same for everyone. We believe that life should be an indulgence, so cherished and enjoyed. And the best way to do that is through enjoying experiences together, following our hearts. May you be inspired to do the same. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just want to remind you that you can find all of the show notes at thisindulgentlife.com/17. That's the number 17. And you can go there and find all the links to our guest, Madison, and you can find all the information that you need there. Don't forget as well to leave an honest review and rating. That really helps me in iTunes especially. And I really like to hear your feedback. What you want to hear, what you feel needs improved on. If you're watching on YouTube, then please be sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you love about this episode and who else you want me to talk to. This show is all for you, so I want to make sure that it's meeting your needs. And I'd love to see you in the Facebook group. It's a growing community of traveling families, everybody from weekend warriors to full-time traveling around the world and everything in between. It is a community where we can come together and support each other, inspire each other, and educate on maybe the best places to go where you're at. So please be sure to go visit Family, Travel, and Adventure Tribe with This Indulgent Life on Facebook. See you there. So now let me introduce the Bowman family. They left their home in New York City 2 years ago to explore the U.S. and visit 59 national parks. After hitting their 59th, 18 months after hitting the road, they decided to expand their goal to include all 419 sites run by the National Park Service. During their national park trip, they lived in a self-converted shuttle bus, which they now use for shorter trips around the Northeast. So please join me in welcoming Madison Bowman with the American Fieldtrip. All right, so welcome, Madison, from the American Fieldtrip. I'm so glad you're here. I have actually been following you. Oh, sorry. Lagging. What?
I just said thank you so much for having me.
I've actually been following you for a little while because back when you met, Less Drunk, More Journey, we watched that video.
Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, okay.
That's how we found out.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So we've been following you for a while, and we probably for the year. I don't know when you guys actually recorded it, but we saw it about a year ago. So that's how long we've actually been following your journey, and love seeing all of the adventures that you get to go on with your 2 kids.
It's been fun.
I was really impressed with your bus. We're going to get into that later. But first, could you tell us a little bit about your family, who you guys are, and how you even just got into traveling?
Yeah. Well, we've been married 8 years. We have 2 kids who are 5 and 3 now. When we started our trip, they were 1 and 3.
Wow.
So they were small, and I look back on pictures, and it's still so long ago. We are based in New York City, and we've been here this has been our home for about 6 years, but then we traveled for 18 months of that. So I grew up in Idaho doing a lot of outdoor stuff, but not traveling too much. And David grew up in Kansas, and we've both always really loved to travel, but I think when we got married, we kind of felt like we needed to stop and grow up, be responsible, and basically like save all of that until we were retired. That seems like the path to go on. So we kind of pushed and pulled, like going back and forth, trying to figure out if we were allowed to do this kind of thing, especially after having kids, when it started to feel like we really needed to be grown-ups, and could we just ditch like the regular plan and go do something else? So that's more of a cognitive struggle than I imagined. And that's more, I felt like I was a fairly adventurous person, but it is hard when you bring kids into the mix, and there's a lot of comfort in doing the typical thing, because you don't want to feel like you're taking risks with your children and their lives. So anyway, so that's something that we've thought about a lot. That's a deeper issue.
No, but it's an issue that I think most people who have an adventurous soul struggle with, right? Like I didn't even have kids at the time, and when we decided to move here, I remember that epiphany moment was like, oh wait, you mean people who are married and have kids can still do this? Like it's not just some like young college backpacking or old people retired thing. Like wait a minute, like people with kids actually do. I thought you had to settle down and you couldn't do anything for a while. So it's totally not just you. I think it's a normal struggle, which is why we're doing this, right? This is why we're doing the podcast and why we're trying to get people to realize, hey, you can still travel.
You can do it, and you don't have to be that brave. Like I feel like I'm not a naturally super bold person, so it's nice to see other people doing it and having kind of that, almost like a support system or just something to point to, like, hey, this is a fine thing to do.
I think we all have, I don't know if everyone could, like, I can't pinpoint exactly where each of my journeys have started, like, but I know that there was always some inspirational book or video or something that I saw that made me go, whoa, that can happen. So that's why this is so important that we all share our stories, because there are people out there that are like, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that. I've got work and I've got kids and so there's ways, and that's why we're here. So tell me a little bit about you guys. It was 59 national parks, right?
Yep.
And so why national parks? What was this goal all about?
So it kind of came from, we'd moved to New York straight from college. We had 2 kids. I got to do a lot more traveling and other stuff during college and before and around and after and during summers, and my husband didn't do any of that. He didn't do a study abroad, and he came home and he got married when he was 21. To me, he was just a baby, and I was only 23, also a baby, but still I had, at least a couple of years on him. So then after college, we really quickly felt like we needed to settle into a career, and that if we didn't do that, we'd be behind. And then we had kids, so he was feeling really a lot of pressure to support and to provide and to be like the dad, And one night I remember I felt like he was kind of losing touch with some of the things that he'd been so passionate about when we got together, and I made him sit down and write a bucket list, thinking, maybe there's some stuff on here that we can do and like awaken your soul a little bit again. And I had never heard that he had these dreams, but he had a dream to own a bus, and he had a dream to visit all of the national parks. And they were not things that I'd ever considered or thought about before. but then I started looking at like van life accounts and school bus conversions online. And I am terrible about if you put an idea in my head, then I will just run with it. So poor David, it was like October he wrote this list, and by January we had purchased the bus, and then April 1st we left and we'd rented out our apartment, and he'd quit his job and we were going for it. So it all happened really quickly in terms of like the research and the thinking. And maybe because we did it so quickly, there was a lot of like, oh my gosh, what have we done? We have completely like screwed up our lives. We need to go get that job back. And but that was where that started. And then we put them together because we thought, I mean, the national parks are all really, for the most part, not all, but mostly really great for driving to and for road tripping. And that's kind of the easiest way to see a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And cheaper if you can just sleep in your car instead of getting a hotel all the time. So that was like my wheels were turning, and I was like, well, let's just knock out the bus, owning the bus and doing the parks at the same time. And everyone thought we were crazy. But
that's the way it goes.
Now, a couple of years later, I feel like we never talk to anyone about our trip who doesn't have like a relative or somebody living in a van or a bus or an RV, you know. It's maybe we're just what's that phenomenon where you hear a word, it's like you learn about something and then you see it everywhere.
Everybody has it. Yes.
Yeah, I felt like that was us with road life. So it started to seem more normal.
So maybe just the more you get into it, the more normal you become, at least in your circle.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. So it was actually his idea and not your idea at first, but his idea just kind of got you going and running with it and got you excited.
That was the spark. Yeah.
I'm with you. I tend to be the same way. Like when we moved here, I think it was like beginning of October that the idea came to me. And then by middle January, we were here. So
that's awesome.
And then, you know, we've actually, the RV thing is probably the one thing we've taken the most time on, but that's only because we have no choice.
You're doing something else right now.
Yeah, so. I got to finish a contract. So, you know, we got to, but you know, buying the Airstream, it was just like, we were looking at something else, and my husband was like, oh, well, there's this Airstream, you know, fully gutted. And I was like, oh, yeah, but that's more than I really want to spend. And I didn't really want to spend that much time. And then I was like talking to my mom about something else, and I was just like, but Airstreams, they hold their value. So technically that would be an investment. So sure. And then like 2 days later we owned it. So
the one RV that's a sound investment, because the rest of them are just not at all. But
well, that's where I was just like, guys. Well, if I'm going to spend my money on something and spend my time, I might as well make it an Airstream.
Yeah.
So now
they're so good looking.
Now we own one. Fully gutted, nothing in it, awesome. But hey. But you know, it's just awesome. Kind of that thing, like, why not? Like, if you're going to do it, just jump in and do it. You know, you're going to be scared no matter what, so you might as well just get started, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's what I feel. My poor parents, they have expressed a desire to travel more now that their careers are winding down, and I just never saw, like, they kept talking about things that they wanted to do, so I decided to just start booking things for them. And then they went, we got them to go to Thailand, and they went and did like a Holy Land tour in Israel, and my mom really wanted to go to Hamilton, so we just got her. I was like, it's not impossible to do these things. Mm-mm. Sometimes they cost money, but that's like the thing that they have now at the end of their working time, you know? Like, you guys, you got to just do this stuff. Like, it's not going to fall out of the sky, you know?
So basically, no one should tell you their dreams, their
No, don't.
bucket list, unless they really intend on doing it, because you're gonna make it
Oh,
happen.
I know. Well, no, and that's giving me too much credit. Like, that's making me sound better at this than I am, because I have a lot of fears of my own. But yes, in general, I tend
You're
to
just
like.
really good. You're like me. You're really good at taking other people's dreams and making it's much easier to do it for somebody else than it is for yourself.
Yes, it is. It's easier to spend other people's money. It's easier to say, like, this is what you should do. Yeah, definitely. But
I'm the
in
same
fact,
way.
David, my husband, has joked a lot of times that that's the business I should start. It's like, you got money, I got time. I'll plan, like, the thing that you want to do. Let's make it happen, you know?
There you go. Well, you do what I'm doing now, right? Like I'm
there you go.
starting travel coaching and whatnot. You can start travel coaching too. You know, you got dreams.
Awesome.
We make it reality.
We got Google. We can figure this out.
Truth. And Facebook groups.
There you go.
You don't need anything else.
Yes. If you can dig through a Reddit thread, you can get anywhere. Learn anything.
So, bringing it back to the national parks, was there a time frame you had in mind? Like, you guys did 18 months, which is quite an interesting time frame. So I wasn't sure if that was planned or just how it happened.
Oh, it was so arbitrary, the whole thing. We wanted to spend 2 summers as opposed to 2 winters, you know. And we thought that we needed to be back this past fall for my son to start kindergarten, was kind of the idea. Mm-hmm. We planned on him skipping pre-K, which is not a big deal in many parts of the world and of the States, but in New York is like everybody does pre-K and it's a full day thing, and I was in that headspace. So we were fine skipping pre-K, but we thought we needed to get him back for kindergarten. So that was kind of our deadline. And our starting point was super, super arbitrary because I'd gotten tickets to Hello Dolly to see Bette Midler on Broadway on March 31st. And so we left on April 1st because that was the soonest that we didn't have an obligation to Bette Midler. So
that's a big obligation.
Yes, it is. And she was so good. But,
and add that to the bucket list.
Bette Midler.
So it's
you gotta get in there though. She's like getting old. She was a little bit like
maybe
she was great. But there were quite a few lines that she was like, I don't know, but I'm Bette Midler, you know. Like, oh,
that's probably
girl,
even better.
Yeah, like, we're getting Dolly and we're getting Bette, so no, it was great. I don't know how we got onto this.
I don't know, because we are. So, I love that. Besides Bette Midler at the start of your trip, what was probably your most memorable experience of the trip?
Oh, man. There's, like, memorable, wonderful, like, inspiring, soul-soaring, and there's memorable, awful.
Maybe do one of each.
I mean, okay, so we built our bus out in 6 weeks from
That's
taking
crazy.
it to a city shuttle bus, like having to rip out all the seats and everything, to finished. We wanted to do it in 4. I don't know where we got that.
I don't even know how you did it in 6. Like,
did not sleep at all, at all. And we lived at Home Depot. Like, we made so many runs to Home Depot. Then it was super painful. I wouldn't recommend that anybody do it that way. It was not, it was a really steep learning curve, and we were just trying to sprint up the learning curve.
Yeah.
And it was, so by the end, we were like, we're going to burn this bus down. Like, when we drove it off, we're like, we're just going to take it out onto the salt flats and just like light it on fire. We hated everything. And all we could see was the mistakes, like all of the themes that we hadn't, you know, trimmed. And so and then we got all of our stuff in it, and it was like, oh, doesn't matter. It's fine. This is like a functional, we can sleep in this. This is fine. So that was painful, but turned out to be a great learning experience. And we've mostly repressed it to the point where now we're like, maybe we should build out a van now. What should be our next project? Like memorable, wonderful. There were so many things. I mean, this is the thing about the national parks and natural beauty. It's inspiring on a level that would sound so cheesy if I were to articulate it more. Like it's looking into the Grand Canyon, which wasn't even our favorite park. Like we weren't able to do any major hikes there or anything, but just standing there on the rim, being dwarfed by that, being dwarfed by sequoia trees or redwood trees, seeing bears in Alaska in Katmai National Park. The bears stand at the top of the little Brooks Falls there and fish for salmon during the salmon run. And it's just like the level of majesty is just indescribable. And we really started getting more and more attuned to that and kind of able to put aside like the day-to-day stuff and really be there in those places and in those moments. And it helps too that we had our kids with us, because even though a lot of the time we were fielding requests for snacks or playing 20 questions so they wouldn't complain during a hike, it was we were also seeing things through their eyes and explaining the natural world to them as far as we understand it and as much as we were learning about it. And having that like very elementary learning experience with them, and then just seeing how grand everything was and how new everything was for them, it was really, really incredible for all of us.
Just seeing the joy on a child's face can bring you some, like, we went to this Chinese puppet show here in town yesterday, and I think I maybe watched like 3 minutes of it. Like the rest of the time I'm just watching like my son staring this thing down and then getting like,
Yes.
so excited. Like, you know, it was just so much more interesting watching him. But
Yes.
it's just, there's a whole new sense of wonder when you travel with a kid versus just traveling with yourself or your spouse. It's a completely different level of joy. But I do understand, like, I'm a cheesy person for sure. Like, my mom lives in the mountains of PA. And when I drive there and you see these, like, majestic mountains, and they're not even, like, huge mountains. They're just rolling compared to, like, the Rocky Mountains or something. But, right? Like, I start, like, oh, God, thank you so much. This is so beautiful. And I'm just like, nature is so beautiful.
It is. And now that we've been spending so much more time outside, and I've done a lot more research on what it does to your brain, and it makes so much sense. Just it is literally firing neurons in your brain and making these connections along pathways that help you be more grateful and that help you develop empathy and all of these just beautiful things that I was like, oh, this is why I feel so good when I'm out here, you know? Like, there's real stuff going on. But, yeah. It was
so maybe
really,
that's
really
the key to helping our children be more empathetic human beings, is taking them out in nature.
I think there's a lot to that. I think having them giving them a sense of I was always struck by how much we were dwarfed by mountains and trees and just, you know, these processes that occurred over millennia that result in this beautiful valley or these glaciers and then on the other hand, you would see like trash on the trail, or you would see something really tiny and realize how much power you have to affect change in these places. Or we'd see in a lot of the Alaska parks, there are tons of glaciers, but not as many as there used to be, and they're all smaller than they used to be. And you could look at pictures from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago and see how much they had shrunk in that time. And as we talked to our kids about this, I mean, it seemed to really click, that perspective where you are both tiny, and don't need to take yourself so seriously, but also you can make so much change, and you can do a lot of damage, or you can do a lot of good, depending on what you do with that. So in terms of empathy, I felt like that was a lesson that we were struck by again and again. It was like, here's your place. Like, you're small, but you're powerful. What are you going to do with it? Don't worry too much, because, the earth is going to do its thing. But then on the other hand, like, how are you going to contribute, and what are you going to take from that? So,
and I think a lot of people would think, well, your kids were only 1 and 3, like they can't process that. But my kid is 2, and he saw a guy throwing a water bottle in the grass and was like, oh, like they get it if you show them and teach it, right? Like they understand you shouldn't just do that, even though they're only so little. So I think we don't give kids enough credit sometimes.
I think that's totally true.
So kind of into that idea and how amazing these parks are, you have started this Thank You Parks campaign, and this is your second time doing it, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about this campaign you're trying to get up and going?
Yeah, so the first time we did it was November of 2017, and as November is a month of gratitude for us in America, at least, we just posted something every day, a reason why we were grateful for the Park Service and for systems of state and city parks, which, have a huge impact on our lives. And we had been seeing all of these rangers and people behind the scenes and talking to them a lot and learning a lot about the work that goes in. It's such an underappreciated resource. It's taken very well advantage of. The park system has a ton of visitors here in the States, but I don't think many people realize how much work goes into it and how little these people are paid, how little funding there is to do all of this stuff. So anyway, we started posting just reasons we were thankful and encouraging other people to post those and use the hashtag Thank You Parks to kind of gather some of our ideas. And back then we also posted a lot of ways that people could get involved with their park system, or ways that they could thank specific people who had made efforts to improve parks or to establish parks. So we're just this is National Park Week in the U.S., and we are from now until next Saturday, the 28th.
Yeah, so this is in April that we're doing this, guys, like the day after Easter, just to let you know.
Yes, April 2019. So this is National Parks Week, so we're just posting some more reasons why we're grateful for the national parks and encouraging others to do likewise and reposting the posts that they're making.
That's
just
really
a nice way to kind of flood our feeds with this idea that, there are a lot of people working really hard behind the scenes of these parks, and every bit of scenery that they preserve was fought for so hard by somebody in history to keep that and to make that available for us now. So
I think a lot of people who grow up, especially in the U.S. or, a country like that where they have lots of outdoor space, they don't realize how unique that is. Because in a lot of parts of the world, it's just massive development upon development. And it's just constantly you're fighting to preserve something because people just want to build. And so the fact that Americans have 59 national parks, that's not state parks or county parks or anything like that, is incredible, So something for sure.
It really is. And now there are 61 actually. Since we started, two more have been established. Yeah, which doesn't happen very often, so it's kind of a rare influx of national parks. But
so now you're gonna have to go back out and do those too?
Yeah, we did one of them on our way home, and then they just announced another one a couple of months ago. So in Indiana, so we gotta go check it out.
Awesome.
But
Um, but now you're doing all of the national sites, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, and
So
that's
the
a long way.
the National Park Service is very confusing in the way that there's the National Park Service, and they administer the national parks, of which there are 61, and then they administer a whole bunch of other sites um, that fall under their jurisdiction, and then they contribute to the administering of a bunch of other sites. The ones that the NPS runs fully, there are 419 of them. So we are now trying to visit all of those. Maybe because we're crazy or weird. Mostly, we really love doing the list thing. As arbitrary as it can feel sometimes to just have a checklist, and we don't like the attitude of like checking a park off, like we've been there, we don't need to do that. But having a list gave us the impetus to go to a lot of places that we would not have gone at all. And we loved all of them. So, and then along the way, we figured out that the naming system for all of these sites is really, it's kind of weird. It's very political, and so there are a lot of places that would be national parks if the stars aligned better for that place. And then there are a lot of, historic sites out here in the East where we are, that we just wanted to see because they're just cool.
Yeah, and you have the opportunity. So
Yeah.
if a family wanted to maybe follow your lead and do these national parks or sites or any kind of really big goal, let's say they had a list goal like you, what should they keep in mind? What should they know when making a decision?
We learned so many things. I would say for starters, there's no perfect time. There's no perfect age of your kids. There's no perfect situation in which to do this. So if it's something that you want to do and you have some traction, some movement going for you right now, take advantage of that and just, make it work as far as you can. We moved really quickly on our trip. We thought that a year and a half was going to be loads of time. Usually when you go visit a country, you don't have that long. So we thought, one country, the United States, taking a year and a half to see it, that'll be great. And we were so rushed, like place to place. We tried to spend a good chunk of time in each park, but then we'd always learn about other things in the area that we really wanted to see. And even though we were setting our own schedule, we had some deadlines and some things that we had to book, campsites and whatnot. And so we did end up like feeling rushed at times and having to really haul from one destination to the other, which is silly to explain because the whole point of the lifestyle for so many people is like the freedom and the getting to do what you want. And instead, our little type A personalities were like, no, we're gonna get this done. So one thing that I would say is, especially if you're trying to take on like all of the United States, slow down, just go region by region, and Les Junk More Journey, who we are both connected to, they have a really good system where they're home for 6 months around Nashville, and then they're out for 6 months and kind of like ground and recharge and get work done and stuff while they're there, and then kind of take on a single region in that other period of time. And we really felt like that was a really smart way to go. So it didn't work for like our particular trip, but as we're thinking forward for the future, that's definitely something that we've thought would be really ideal for us, is kind of having a home base and some normalcy there, and then taking like a region at a time,
Yeah. How fast were you traveling? How long would you be in one place?
Oh, we tried. I mean, it depends on the park. Yosemite, we were there for like 10 days. And then, but there were some parks that we were only there for a day, some of the smaller ones where there's not a ton to do. We tried to always stay at least 4 days in a park. And in that time, you can get like some good hiking in and see a lot of the sights. But it did, I mean, there were places like Death Valley that's huge where we felt like we could spend a month or two, you know, and just really just take it in. So it's hard to leave because we always left with a list of things we wanted to come back and do more of.
Now, you didn't take the bus, obviously, to Hawaii, so, and there are some national parks there. So how'd you guys manage that?
We flew.
Oh, yes.
We swam. We swam the bus down. No, we flew from Alaska. We drove up to Alaska and flew down from there, which is weird and farther, but cheaper also. Flights from Alaska to Hawaii are very inexpensive, as it turns out.
Interesting.
So we flew down there. At the time, we didn't consider the American Samoa. To get to that national park in American Samoa, you almost always fly through Hawaii. So other people that go visit all the parks do those ones in the South Pacific at the same time, but not us. We were too intimidated. So we just went to Hawaii, went back to Alaska, and so we ended up making 2 trips to Alaska over both summers, and then going back to Hawaii after American Samoa because we're not good at planning. And that was always that was the thing too, is that I'd look at a map and be like, okay, we can hit these in a row. But the planning of the park took place in like on the drive there always. It's like, okay, we roughly know that we're going to be in this state. We'll figure it out when we get there. And then sometimes we just show up at the park and ask the ranger, like, where can we sleep? So for some people that would be very stressful, but I don't know. We got used to this rhythm of just not ever knowing what was going on.
Did you ever have problems getting into a park doing that?
No. I mean, there were some that we knew we needed to plan ahead for. Some, I didn't realize how difficult a lot of the Alaska parks are to get to when we were starting out. Somehow, I just thought, we'll figure it out when we get there. Alaska's not a place you can figure it out when you get there. So I remember we were sleeping outside my sister's house in Oregon. We had just done our first 6 parks, made a pit stop, and we were on our way up to Alaska, and I was looking at some of the info about the Alaska parks, and I was like, we have to fly into these places. We needed reservations a long time ago to camp there, and I have no idea how we're going to get there or how we're going to pay for it because all these little bush flights are pricey. And anyway, I had a breakdown of epic proportions there at my sister's house, just like, what are we doing? Like, I'm not enough of an adult to have taken this on. Like, obviously, I'm not responsible enough because I want to take my 1-year-old into the Alaskan bush, and I've done zero planning, and grizzly bears, and my sister was like, well, you don't have to go to these places. Why are you so stressed about this?
You're like, no, I said I'm going.
We told Instagram that we were going to do it. We got to do it. But we made it. Like, we ended up, contacting a bunch of people and figuring it out, and it worked. We did not get eaten by bears, despite a few close run-ins. But no, I mean, it was. I would not recommend that you don't plan ahead. I think it's a good idea to plan ahead. But when you are traveling full time, and maybe you've had this experience too, it's really hard to live in the moment if you're always reflecting on, editing photos from, and writing about your last place that you were. You're in the place that you're in, and then you've also got a plan for the next place. So that was always, we were always like writing or blogging about the last park in the current park, trying to figure out the next park, and it got to be like something had to give, and that was often the planning of the next park. So
the
it
future.
is what it is.
The future's whatever.
I know. Probably not. That doesn't reveal something good about me, that was the thing that went. But
no, we sound a lot alike.
but that's the truth. Anyway.
Moving on. No, just kidding. So
Yeah.
I find that many Americans really like this idea of RVing and, especially with their kids and wanting to travel more. But they really struggle to imagine what life will be like, how their kids will adapt to constantly moving, lack of stable community, schooling situation. Could you tell us a little bit about what that ended up looking like for you guys and your family, even the work situation? I know you guys were having your own businesses at the time, so how do you manage all of that, plus traveling full time and trying to enjoy it?
Well, I mean, the enjoyment helps a lot with the getting done of the other stuff. I mean, that's something that we didn't think very much about, was that you are recharging your batteries so much when you're out doing all the adventure, and then you have a lot more to bring to your work when you come back to it. And I mean, we got all of our work done at night after the kids went to bed, which is not super ideal. Poor David hasn't slept in like 2 years. But you make it work, and you catch up with things where you can. He was just doing freelance. He's a graphic designer. And then I was doing a lot of writing, but that doesn't make any money. So that was mostly on David to actually, like, I was working, but my work is not financially stable. So that was where, in terms of having kids on the road, so much like having kids anywhere else. I mean, if you're a parent and you've been on vacation, you know that it's not a vacation. You're just in a different location with your kids. And that location might be a beach, or it might be a national park. It might be somewhere great, but you're still probably waking up earlier than you would like to, and more times than I think you would like to. You're wiping somebody's bum during the day. You're like you're getting so many snack requests, and as soon as you complete a meal, your kids are talking about how hungry they are because they didn't eat anything, because they only want to eat snack foods, because the snack foods are the processed things that they like. I mean, it's the same stuff from anywhere, and you might as well be in a place that you really enjoy if you're going to be doing all of that stuff anyway. Like, your kids are going to get the flu bug while you're on the road, and it's going to be inconvenient, but that's not fun to deal with at home either. So it's, you might as well be doing the things that you want to do with your life while also dealing with this other stuff. And I feel like it fits in pretty easily. Kids' needs will absorb as much time as you give to them. In terms, like, when I had our first, it was so all-consuming to have one kid. And then when a second kid came along, I felt like I'm never going to be able to do this because I don't have any more time. But it just fits into the space. And you kind of think about, you get into these habits, and it's less of a mental struggle. And it's just, I don't know if any of this is making sense, but my feeling was just like, traveling with kids, it can be very uncomfortable. But traveling is uncomfortable, and should be, I think, if you're doing it properly. Like, I mean, you can go on a luxury vacation where you're kind of taken care of and taken from place to place, and that's fine if you like doing that. But if we're talking about real travel, you're going to be uncomfortable. So that's not a difference. And then if kids are really inconvenient a lot of the time, and that's just, they can be inconvenient in Thailand, or they can be inconvenient in an RV, or they can be inconvenient in your suburban home in Minneapolis. And whatever you're doing, those are going to be the constants in your life. And actually, we felt like that was really a positive for us, that our kids needed breakfast at 8 o'clock every morning and they needed lunch at noon. It kept us in a very normal rhythm, and it kept us going to bed on time every night and having a space in the day for naps and eating regular food because we had to. So, I mean, in terms of that, like as inconvenient as that can sometimes be, it's also really, really healthy for those patterns that kids require are really healthy for all humans. So it's great if you have a kid that needs those things, because then you do those things too, and it allows you to be doing the things that you need to keep going. And
it's so true. Like, even I think my kid actually makes me get out more. Like, he wants to be outside. And so, I may just want to be like, oh, I just want to relax and do nothing. But he's the one that actually makes me be more adventurous, because he pushes you to do these things, right?
Absolutely. We've lived in New York City for a while, and I have noticed this so much. Before we had kids, David had an internship in San Francisco, which is a city that I love so much and always wanted to explore. And I didn't have any kids, and I didn't have a job at the time because we were only there briefly. And I should have been out exploring the city every day. And you know what I did? I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy and did a lot of Sudoku puzzles, because there was I didn't really want to go out by myself, and there was no impetus for me out, and I didn't really know how to get around very well. And now I've only experienced New York City with kids, and sometimes I think, if I would just go do all these amazing things all day, and it would be like living in an episode of Sex and the City. But I know that I wouldn't. Like, I would fully be sitting in my apartment watching television all day long, because that's what I do when left to my own devices. So thank you for my children, because they make me do things.
So true, though. I mean, and part of it is just when you live in a place, you kind of take it for granted, and you're just like, well, it's always there, and I'm just got my day to day, and I'm tired, right? When you're on vacation, it's like, oh, I'm only here for such a short amount of time, so you just do it. But it's the kids kind of help you get out of that a little bit, at least.
Yeah. I think they help regulate that a lot, because you have to get out. You can't just stay home all day long. And at the same time, you can't go bananas every day and do everything, because you will all fall apart. And that's like, I say that we don't do that because the kids would fall apart, but in reality, we would also fall apart. So,
true.
Yeah, children are really just scapegoats for,
Very true.
Because I also like goldfish crackers, but I didn't buy them until I had kids, so they're really just an excuse for doing all the things that I wanted to do anyway.
I always was like, I really can't wait to have a kid, because then I don't look weird doing this. Because it's normal if you do it with a kid. It's not so normal when you're a grown adult doing it. But I really wanted to do it, so, having the kid, steal your friend's kid or something. They give you some excuses.
Toys are fun. Kid stuff is fun.
I love the kids' museums and things. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. Yeah.
So that kind of brings us back to the last little point I really want to talk about, is adjusting back to what we call a sticks and bricks life, or a normal, home-based life. So now you have a normal routine. Your husband's working a full-time job. You're homeschooling the kids. What is it like to give up the full-time travel for part-time travel, and what would you change if you could?
I think part of us is realizing, when we were full-time traveling, we kept looking forward to coming home and having space to kind of catch up on all of the things that had accumulated that we had to just put aside because we were doing other stuff, and as it turns out, kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about, we were a lot more productive while we were traveling, because you had to fit it in. And now that we have more time and kind of a more comfortable living arrangement, we don't we're not as efficient, I think. And we had expected that our level of efficiency would stay the same. And so and our circumstances would be better. So we would just like explode with productivity. So we're looking at ways to get back into traveling again, because we're realizing that, it did charge us in a lot of ways that helped us to bring our better selves to we're both in creative fields, and it was enormously helpful to have that kind of daytime stuff going on, and then bring that to the table when we were working. That said, having a shower that's my own, that's not at a campground, that doesn't have like somebody else's hair in the corner, that is really, really wonderful. Like, if one of my kids takes like half an hour in the bathroom, I'm not standing in a gas station outside the bathroom like, hey, are you done yet? Are you done? We're just at our house, and I can sit on the couch while they do that and read a book,
Because you guys didn't have that in your bus, right?
No, we didn't have a bathroom.
Yeah. So maybe you got to just do a bigger bus. You need a bigger bus.
Yeah. Or we could just build all of these, right? We could just get an RV like normal people and have all of this stuff. Honestly, we did not want to figure out like black tanks and dealing with like septic stuff. So we were like, we'll just skip it. Like, well, that comes with its own price to pay, but so there's a lot of stuff that's convenient, and my kids have been really happy to have more space that's theirs, where they can spread out their stuff. We had the great outdoors, but for them to have like a quiet place where they can just go into their room and not need to be looked after, and kind of establish their little special spots has been really good for them. So I mentioned earlier, I think our ideal would be kind of a half and half, where we're still doing a lot of traveling, but also have a home base. Because the one thing we really missed while we were on the road was having a community. We met friends on the road, but like I said, we were moving around so quickly. One great thing was that we got to see a lot of family and friends that have kind of spread out all over the country. And so there were plenty of times when we were sleeping in friends' driveways and our kids could play together, and that was wonderful. And we saw a lot of my family. We passed back through Idaho, where most of my family lives, several times, and so our kids got lots of cousin time. I mean, I don't think that they felt deprived, really.
Yeah.
But it was something that we missed. Like, I felt like we couldn't really be helpful to anybody while we were on the road. Like a friend at home would have a baby, and I was like, I want to bring you some food, and I can't do anything for you because we're just off, There were lots of things like that, where like people in our church community there would be a need that we could have filled were we there, but couldn't. Or like we tried to be involved in a lot of service stuff in our neighborhood, and not being able to participate in that kind of took a toll in terms of like my self-image. Like, what am I contributing to the world? It felt almost selfish to be pursuing our travel so single-mindedly without having people that could count on us in a home community, if that makes sense. So I mean, it's give and take, everywhere. And maybe we're trying to we're just trying to keep a foot in both worlds by trying to split up our time.
Yeah.
But I do think that for a lot of people that could maybe be a workable solution. If you can't do it all the time, but you can set up a home base in a place that's inexpensive enough that you can save up, and then even if you're just traveling kind of close by where you're from, I mean, what a cool thing to be able to do on a part-time basis. And then you have more time to plan ahead and to process what you've seen. Like, that's another real downside of full-time travel that I don't see a lot of people talking about on like Instagram, where everything's like, we're in a new country every week, and like, that's a lot, and it's a lot to process. And if you don't have any time where you just go home and you're not seeing new things, I feel like a lot of it just kind of like washes over you, you know?
It's funny that you
so,
say that, because I did an episode with our squad abroad, which was episode number, where was it? It will be episode number 7. And she said the same thing. She was just like, I would slow down because there's no time to plan. And it's just sometimes you just like inundated with information.
Yeah, it's a lot. And as much as it's tempting to, like, we had to go to American Samoa, because there's a national park there. One of our dearest humans lives in the Philippines, and so we were like, while we're over there, we'll go to the Philippines. And then we've always wanted to go to Australia and New Zealand, so we went to Australia and New Zealand. And then we were like, American Samoa is so close to Western Samoa, we got to go there too. And we had long enough, we had a couple of months to go to all of these places, so it wasn't like it was one country a day or anything. But it is so tempting if you're in an area to try to do all the other things in that area. If you're in Southeast Asia, but I've always wanted to go to all of these places. So, and the flights are cheap and we could just go, it's really, really tempting. And that's a mindset that I have to keep putting on myself. You will get so much more out of it, and you will be able to really settle into a place and understand it so much better if you're there for longer. The slowing down is hard. I mean, most people only have like 2 weeks of vacation a year, and they got to pack all of their travel into that time. So it's very much a privilege that I can say, like, don't go to Australia unless you can go for 2 months, because most people don't have that choice. But that's really why we want to encourage people to go closer to home, so that if you only have a couple of weeks a year, you're going to the next state over and exploring that instead of trying to go all the way around the world, where you will have a short amount of time and you'll be super jet lagged, and and you maybe will never be able to go back there again and revisit those memories like you could if you went somewhere closer to home. So I don't know, but it's hard because I want to go everywhere in the world. So
you're like me. I want to do all of it. Do all of it.
I know.
Do everything.
So I understand the struggle.
Well, at least you can do long weekends close by, if anything.
Yeah.
So you have more options than just taking big long trips. So you can save those.
You don't have to take it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did your traveling inspire you to do homeschooling? I know you're homeschooling now, and you're like, at first you're like, I had to put him in kindergarten, but now you're homeschooling.
Yeah.
So is that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think a part of it was giving myself permission to do something that is unconventional, which homeschooling is a lot more conventional than it used to be. I mean, there's so many resources now, and it's not like a weird thing to be doing. When I was growing up, it was a weird thing.
It was a weird thing when we were growing up, yes.
Yeah. So, that stigma is like kind of lifting. People are still really worried that your kids are going to be weird, but I went to public school and I'm still weird. I don't know how much hope we have for them.
There's none. Just none.
But yeah, so partly that was like, I can do something differently. I've always been interested in homeschool. And actually, we had some friends over the other day who she was homeschooled. And I remember when Graham, our oldest, was like 6 months, having a conversation with her about it. Like, I'm really interested in doing this. Tell me about your experience. So she was so excited when we decided to do it, 5 years later. And as I was talking to them, I was thinking about, homeschooling plays to my strengths as a parent. There are a lot of things as a parent that I'm not good at all. And not that I don't want to improve in those areas, but I think as much as we can play on the things that we're already interested in and good at, and so I used to teach college. I love the planning of everything, like the syllabi and the curriculums. And I love that. And I really, really love learning with my kids. And teaching is like fills me up so much.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, I know for a lot of parents, that's like to be their best selves, they need to let the kids go off and have them not have to worry about all of the things, you know? So I definitely don't think that this is like, you're better if you're homeschooling. But more, I just realized like, this is something I really want to do and that I can do. And I feel like, it'll help my kids get the best of me and me to get the best of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really just believe in it in terms of having more time to do the things that are really proven to be good for very young children that they don't have very much time to do if they're in school full day. So just like reading to them all day long, which is a lot of what we do, there's only like 4 things that all experts agree are definitely good for kids, you know, and like reading out loud to them is one of them. Good sleep is one of them, which homeschool facilitates because we don't have to get up early to start and get out the door. You know, it can be very relaxed. Time outside is a big one. And then free play. These are like the things that crop up over and over again in research, that even when you control for all other factors, socioeconomic status, education of parents, all these other things, these are the things that remain isolated. These things improve people, like humans in every way. So for me, it was like, well, yeah, this makes sense. We'll have time to do these things. My kids, I mean, they're still really young, and my son's just in kindergarten, so it's not a super structured thing yet, but they spend so much time every day just playing Lego and building with magnetiles, and I am so glad that they get to do that because they are learning so much from that and so much more than their little brains could pick up through a more formal instruction. So I feel really lucky that I get to do that because I know that that's not an option for a lot of people. But I really, really like staying home with them, and I really, really like homeschooling them. And part of it's probably just selfish. Like, I don't want you to go off all day. You're my entertainment. You're my little buddies. Like, who am I gonna play Sleeping Queens with if you guys go off for the day? So
that's okay. So, I'm sure they love it too.
I hope so. That's also the worry, is like they're with me so much. If they were with other people, I could at least blame those other people if they, like, when they behave badly or something. But it's not. Like, it's all on me. I've taken this all on. Anyway. But
that's okay. And the great thing about with schooling in general is none of it has to be permanent. If it doesn't work next year, then you can switch. If it doesn't work next month, you can switch, right? Like, it's not... It's fluid. You don't have to make a decision that lasts your whole entire child's life. Like, I see so many people with preschoolers wanting to get into this kind of life and going, but I don't think I could homeschool high school. And we're like, dude, that's like 10 plus years away. Like, don't worry about that.
Like, you have no idea what your life's going to be like in 10 years. No, yeah, I feel that absolutely. When people ask if we're doing this long term, I'm like, 1 year at a time, 1 kid at a time. Like, I'd be fine if one of my kids seems like they do better in public school, you know? Like, it's not, I don't know. It's a good thing to keep in mind that, like, you can make your 5-year plan, but in 5 years, you might look back and laugh at your 5-year plan. It just is going to take you places that you didn't anticipate, you know?
Yep.
But
good to have direction, but don't get stuck in it.
Yeah. It's like, isn't it beautiful when things come along and take you by surprise?
Yeah, because 5 years ago, I definitely was not planning on RVing. So there was like a whole different plan for sure. Actually, I wasn't even planning on being abroad 5 years ago. So, you know, just...
Yeah, five years ago, I saw no path to us traveling for a long time. I didn't think that was a possibility, and I don't know. So yeah, bad things can also happen in the course of 5 years.
True.
But more likely something will happen that you can take to a good place. So.
Well, I know that you have been on with me for a while and you're probably very tired. So let me get to the last few questions. Even though I'm really enjoying this, I know that it's getting quite late for you. So what is on the agenda next for the American Fieldtrip family?
We are doing all the National Park Service sites. So we're just kind of exploring the Northeast to kind of Mid-Atlantic region. We just got back from doing a bunch of sites in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. You got to see the cherry blossoms.
Yes, it was so nice. My husband works remotely, so which when we're doing stuff like that means that he's having meetings in the car, and like it's not ideal, but it means that we can go do stuff like that. So we're going to be back in our bus at times this summer, putting around the Northeast, and then we'll go from there. I think our plan is to take one region at a time and try to go a lot more slowly everywhere that we go.
Nice.
Kind of calm down a little bit. So.
And see if that ends up working for you the way you want.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sounds good. All right. So, the big one. What do you hope your kids will learn from traveling?
Oh, I think top of my mind in parenting has always been empathy. I feel like if they can empathize with others and empathize with themselves, kind of recognize their feelings, take note of them, but not be driven by them, and be able to step in other people's shoes. That's like, I feel like if you can do that, you will be happy and you will do good for the world. And so, I mean, there's so many things I want to give my kids, but I think that travel is a really good way to help them experience new things, learn to kind of roll with what's going on, and empathize with people who are in different situations. So that's a big goal for me. And they're still so young. A lot of it is just, I'm sure they won't remember almost anything that we've done so far, but a lot of this is just setting those habits and setting those patterns of, and kind of setting a family culture that teaches them, if you want to do something and it's really a dream for you, don't put that on the shelf. Like, let's take it off and see how we can make it happen. Because that dream will lead on to other things and will give you more dreams. And if you put it off for a later date, you might not have time to pursue those other things that are going to build off of this. And travel is something that should build your life and build your worldview. And if you save that for the end of your life, then a lot of that benefit, it's just truncated. So setting that family culture of like, let's take this stuff on and let's take this seriously and see how we can make this stuff happen that's really important to us and that we really want to do.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Like, travel broadens your mind. Why would you wait until you're in your 60s and 70s to broaden your mind? That's exactly.
I mean, and we're lucky to live now, because I think, like, when my parents were starting out, you bought a house and you were in the same career for your whole life, and people didn't switch around very much. Now there's a lot more freedom with people switch around a lot more, so there's more opportunity to take a job that's remote, or to move to different areas, whatever your dream is. Like, there are more paths now to do a lot more things. So I think we're very lucky.
And I think that's really important to remember when you're talking to your families about your dreams, that remembering that their mentality is going to come from a place where these things were not possible, where working remotely, working online, moving across the country and traveling, they weren't possible 30 plus years ago. Yeah. And now they are. Yeah. So just remember that when they're getting on you about how this is ridiculous, it's no longer ridiculous.
People do this. I mean, it seems crazy for a 70-year-old person who did not have the internet at all to learn that you could make like thousands of dollars posting about some chips on Instagram or something, like that. The shifts that have to take place in your mind, it's really a bizarre thing. So I understand why everybody's like, "What are you doing?"
It's bizarre for our generation. Never mind theirs.
It is. I know, but it happens. So yeah.
Okay.
People always think you're crazy, but.
What does traveling with your family mean to you? What does getting to travel with your family mean to you?
Oh, it's such a privilege, and that's never, ever lost on me. This is traveling a lot is a life that I really wanted to have growing up, and I didn't see a way for that to be possible for me. It just wasn't something that seemed like something for a rich person or something for, I don't know, people who did not grow up on a farm in Idaho. And so I feel so grateful every single day that this is possible, that we've gotten to see and do things that I never thought I would ever do. And that helps all of the uncomfortable and inconvenient stuff go down real easy, because, like, man, I saw a glacier, and part of it fell in the water while I was standing there, and it was loud and it was beautiful, and it's cultivating that sense of like, dang, or even on the days that are crappy, like, we're all still alive, like, we all made it to the end of the day and we're alive. So whether we're traveling abroad or whether we're way close to home, I feel that very deeply, that sense of like, oh my gosh, this is your life, and you have two really funny, wonderful, healthy children and a husband who's just incredible in every way. And the fact that this is like happening to me seems just beyond what I could have imagined. And travel makes up such a core catalyst for a lot of those feelings, and a lot of that sense of just being very alive and very happy and grateful.
What was that?
Oh no, my headphones died.
Oh, that's okay.
Battery died. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, what is that sound? I better mark that was some weird. It was like some alien sound.
They make the dying sound so pleasant. Like, you are dying now. Everything is over.
All right. That's okay. We're getting close to the end. Just
okay.
one
Sorry,
piece.
I talked so much too. I'm sorry.
No. I feel like I kept you going so long, so it's okay. All right. One piece of advice to families looking to travel more. Do I think we...
Just chill out. Like, you can set your priorities. Let's see. Now that I've lost the headphones, I've also lost my train of thought.
It was keeping it contained.
Yeah. All in my... I think it's really important, especially when traveling with kids, to set, as dorky as it sounds, to kind of set an intention for every trip, every weekend away, what are you really trying to get out of it? Are you trying to have a cultural experience? Are you trying to just relax and enjoy? And then choose the destination, choose the experience that's going to help you get to that. Because sometimes you really need or want to just like relax and recharge. But at the same time, you've always wanted to go to like Portugal. So you try to combine those things and you're like, we're going to take a vacation and we're going to relax in Portugal. But you're not going to do that because you're going to get to Portugal and you're going to want to do all of the things. I think sometimes, especially with travel, we get our intentions mixed up and all of these other ideas and goals that we have for it. So letting go of all of that and just saying, whether we get pretty pictures of it or not, whatever else this is, we really need to relax this weekend. or this week on this vacation. So we are going to go to a place, we're going to go to like Sandals, Jamaica or something that's not at all like an adventure, but you're going to be able to relax, you know? I think just that sense of like, we can be honest with ourselves about what we're really trying to achieve with travel. And then we don't have to go to an exotic place, and we don't have to be like the girl in the red bikini that's like floating in a cenote in Mexico, you know, like it doesn't have to fit into any of these ideas of travel. If you end up falling in love with Jamaica while you're at that Sandals, you can go back and you can do a more adventurous trip in Jamaica, but just kind of being honest with like travel should serve you in what your goals are. It's not a prescribed thing thing where you know that it has to be one thing or the other. Your travel experience doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And I think that you enjoy your travel a lot more when you know going into it, like, this is what we're hoping to get out of it. And then you can prioritize those things.
That's a really great tip, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to do it one way.
It's so hard. And then if you go to a place, every time we go somewhere, I have this experience where we're talking to like one of my parents' friends, and they say, "Oh, you went to Banff? Did you do this thing? Oh, this was the best part of it. And if you didn't do this, you can't really say that you've done it." I feel like every country you go to, you're going to meet somebody who's like, "Oh, you didn't go do that while you were there." And it almost feels competitive. Like I've got to collect all the Pokemon so that if somebody asks me, I don't sound like an idiot. Like, "Oh, I went to Madrid and I didn't go to that park where the Retiro Park," you know. There should be no pressure on it. Like, go be yourself where you're going and get that full rich experience that you're looking for. But for goodness sakes, there's too many places in the world to go do it all and to see everything in any of these spots. So if you get home and somebody's like, "What? You went to Thailand and you didn't do this?" You can just say, "Yeah, but I did this and it was lovely and I fully enjoyed my experience and I wasn't running around like a crazy person trying to collect every experience in the country," you know?
I literally just had this experience yesterday where I was talking to a local lady and she was like, "Well, did you go to China while you were here?" And I'm like, "No." Like, China's right there. Like, literally, I should have been, but because of visas and things, but it was just like, people just automatically, "Well, did you do this while you were there? Did you do that while you were there?" And I'm like, "No." Like, so
it's
my experiences are not so valid because I didn't get to do all of the other things.
Right? It is. It's super invalidating to have somebody be like, "Oh, well, then you haven't lived. Like, you've done nothing with your life if you haven't been," you know.
Exactly.
Like, that's not what travel should be about. It's just, I feel like it gets very competitive and it gets very, people want to be able to say, "Yeah, I did see that." Even if they saw it for 5 minutes and it was a terrible experience and they were like on a bus tour and they saw it, but then at least they can say, "I saw that thing," you know? So what are you prioritizing? Because it's fine if you want to go to a city and try to see all of those highlights, but be upfront with yourself going into it that that's your goal, and you're going to be running around all day and you're going to be tired, and you might not get some of the other benefits, and that's okay. But just like, no going in that you can't have it all, you know?
Totally agree. All right. So where can people connect with you or find out more about you guys?
People can come over for dinner at our house if you're in New York. People can find us on www.americanfieldtrip.com or on Instagram at The American Fieldtrip. We're also on Facebook, but I don't know. It's just like,
it's like there. Yeah.
I can't keep up with this nonsense. So yeah, those are our main.
Awesome.
sources, our hubs.
And definitely, we'll put all of the links in the show notes so you can easily find them when you go. But thank you so much, Madison, for coming and spending this hour and a half with me. I'm sorry.
That's totally not your fault. You're going to go back through the tape and be like, she talked 99% of the time.
No, I actually feel like I talked more.
Any of your questions probably just like took off on my own.
Usually it's like I talk a little tiny bit, but I feel like I talked so much today. I feel like this literally was just like a conversation. Just give me all.
Come back to the States and let's be friends. I won't invite everyone over for dinner, but I'll invite you. We've had a face-to-face now. I feel like
That's
you
right.
won't come to my house and kill my family. So.
No, not completely at least.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us during this interview. Madison was amazing, and I'm so excited to share this with you. I feel like I have a brand new friend with Madison, and we think a lot alike. So maybe that's why we just kept going and going. There was a little bit of technical issue, so thank you for sticking around through that. And be sure you go and check out her website at AmericanFieldtrip.com and her Instagram, The American Fieldtrip. And of course, you can find all of these links in the show notes, which is thisindulgentlife.com/17. Again, that's 17. Be sure to go there, leave a comment on the blog post, let her know how much you loved her episode, and be sure to join the Facebook group, Family, Travel, and Adventure Tribe with This Indulgent Life. I look forward to seeing any of your stories from your trips to national parks or national park sites. And be sure to check out next episode of Follow Your Detour. We're going to speak with Lindsay McKenzie from Follow Your Detour about how finding new dreams amidst the pain of losing old ones can actually become amazing experiences. So be sure to stay tuned next time with Follow Your Detour. See you there.